We are live today with Nean Bruce and Stephen Rick. And I want to, did I pronounce your name correctly, Stephen?
Kerr.
Huh? Kerr. Kerr. I said Rick. I'm sorry. I was dyslexic at that moment. Stephen Kerr. And we're with the college students behind me. Students, raise your hand if you can be seen back there. And I want to have you acknowledge that it's okay to videotape you as well.
It is?
Yes.
Yes, students. Put your hand up if it's okay. Yeah, it's just there.
It's not duck.
All right, so I'm sorry, hopefully we have sound. I'm going to try and close it. All right, excellent. We're with Stephen Kerr and with Nean Bruce, and you're going to talk distribution and production for the class here. And this is an Inside the Film class. I'm Rex Sikes. I'm teaching the class. And we've got students who, you around us, so you won't be able to see them, but you will be able to hear them. I thank you for taking a part of your day to be with us. So, well, first off, would you tell us a little bit about each of you, about yourselves, so that not only the students, but the people who watch this on YouTube and elsewhere have an idea of your expertise and what you've done?
Okay, well, I'll go first. So I'm Stephen Kerr. I came up into the business probably the best we can. I got an MBA from San Diego State University, and then I went into advertising. Advertising industry is often a gateway into the film industry. A lot of my colleagues started there. And then I was recruited by Buena Vista International, which is a distribution arm of the Walt Disney Company, to fill a vacant spot for them in Hong Kong. And I met them on December 22nd, 1982, and January 6th, 1983, I found myself in Hong Kong selling films. So it was a very quick transition for me. I spent 6 years in Hong Kong working for Disney, and then after those 6 years I came back and started doing intellectual property consulting. Basically helping people buy and sell their IP. That ended up doing a lot more buying and selling of media properties. It's been almost 20 years after that selling to media companies. When home video became big, I really did spend a lot of time working with home video companies, buying and selling both their film libraries and individual titles from sometimes. But I sold, I think, something like 13 individual media companies at that, over from like 1997 to 2008. So, and then I worked, you know, my company somewhat morphed because of the economy into film finance. We found ourselves working overseas doing film financing. I spent almost a year working in Russia, in Moscow. If you remember 2010, 11, there was no money to be had for independent film financing. Everybody pretty much had their, you know, corners all pulled in. So to fund, we put together about a $40 million fund in Russia and started funding movies. We ended up working then in South America, in both Panama and Colombia for a couple of years, working on that area as well, and then back to the United States and still doing the same thing. Just about a year ago, Sarah and I partnered together. I like to say, I know how to sell films, I know how to fund films. She knows how to make them. So, Sarah?
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Let's see, how did I get in business? I was fortunate enough to be mentored by some great people in the film business. I kind of had my area of expertise in the 80s was technology, and that was kind of was catching on to the studio system. And I was working for Steve Ruther, who was partners with Arnold Milchan at New Regency. Well, before that, he was at Vestron. And so I just helped everybody with their technology and kind of got in good. I designed new budgeting programs with an old program called Lotus 123, which it's now turned into the formats I set up are now what you use Movie Magic budgeting. But because of my technology expertise, I was kind of able to move in at a higher level and not start out as a, in the mailroom or as a production assistant. I was working with Steve Ruther in the studio system, and then on the side I was doing independent television, which was unheard of at the time, and being more of a producer and writer. I did that for several years, and the nice thing about my mentor was that he put me in every different part of making a movie. One movie I was got to sit with John Avildsen when he was editing Power of One, and it was the first movie that was cut on a computer in the studio system. And so because I knew about computers and how to set them up, I got to set it up for him and watch them cut a movie, and took big, huge floppy disks over to the editors with the EDL, which is the edit decision list. And the editors there thought we were crazy. You're going to cut a movie on a computer, and I'm going to cut the film. It's never going to fly. And as we know, that's how film is cut. And so I worked there. I worked in the accounting department, worked in legal, I worked in creative, and it was always at a higher level and with technology. So that was kind of using my area of expertise to not start in at the stereotypical people starting out in the mailroom was the old way, or doing internships. I did that for a number of years. I took a hiatus for 7 years and moved to Dallas, Texas, and ended up was an event services manager for the Fair Park Coliseum, Cotton Bowl, and basically did rock concerts and big, huge events, which I have a background in event production. And so that was an interesting way for me to really use my degree. But that's also helped me in producing movies. And so I was there, and then I became the film commissioner of North Texas for 3 years, and people that I had worked with in LA were coming out making movies there, and they're asking me, why am I in Texas? And after about a year of hearing that, I don't know why. So I came back to LA with, I'd optioned a script and had properties and kind of reconnected with my contacts. And one of my contacts was people that made movies for the Hallmark Channel. And so I took a script by Rex Sikes called Love, Clyde. He had written Pure Country, had moved to Texas. And so I took that and I pushed it, I had 3 projects and I just pushed them for 3 years. And I made Love, Clyde became Where There's a Will for the Hallmark Channel. And I got to be a co-executive producer and actually helped to make the movie. And then I think that took me about 4 years to get made. And then my next movie was another script I had under option called The Family Plan. And that one took 6 months to get sold because Hallmark really liked what I was doing. And so I did that. And on the side, I was doing very independent movies. I directed a vampire movie that went direct to Blockbuster for about $50,000, shot on short ends, and made over $1 million. And I did a bunch of little projects. And in the past, I think 14, 15 years, I've been doing a lot of independent stuff while also trying to get my projects set up at studios and networks and just doing what I love. And I think when you're passionate about what you do, you make it, because that's one of my number one things I would tell students. If whatever you're passionate at doing, let everybody know that you're passionate about it and just do it as much as you can. It may not be on a big movie, but just do it. And that's what I've been doing, well, since, I've been in the film business since 1986, so, and I'm here.
Well, you both represent a worthwhile amount of valuable expertise and information. I certainly appreciate it. And for listeners and viewers who don't know, Sarah and I have done a couple shows before on Rex Sikes Movie Beat that you can hear anytime as podcasts from iTunes or Blog Talk Radio or from my website. And it's just chock full of really valuable information. So does it get any easier? Or how has the industry changed? Is it, from both your perspectives?
Well, for me, what's changed is that you used to have quite a bit of money to make a movie or TV show, to rent equipment, to buy film. Now with we have citizen journalists and citizen filmmakers. You can make a movie with your iPhone. There was actually a movie shot with iPhone 6, and now because of video technology coming down and because of editing, I used to have $100,000 Avid Media edit suite. Right. And when it came time to upgrade from the Avid I had to Meridian, it was 60 grand. I thought, could buy 2 Final Cut systems, which I did and got rid of that. And it just, everything keeps coming down. The cost of making movies, of telling stories is coming down so that anybody can do it. There's used to be excuse, well, I can't afford film, I can't afford, a camera crew. But now you can make a movie with what you have, with your iPhone, with your, video camera. And shooting in HD is not hard anymore. I made a HD film before people were making HD movies. I shot a digital.
Now 4K.
Yeah, now 4K video. I shot one of the first digital video movies in Dallas. I shot this movie there's a poster behind us called Yesterday Was a Lie. I was a producer on, and we shot that in with HD cam with the Panavision Cine Alta system, and it was a fraction of the cost. I think it was under $500,000 to shoot this black and white film noir, and it's just the cost keeps coming down. I think that's why it's more exciting now to be a filmmaker, a storyteller, than it was even 10 years ago, because the cost of it's come down. The other thing that's come down, I'll let Stephen talk a little bit more on that, is there are so many outlets that you can release your movies now. You can, with home video is not there, it's home entertainment. There's so many outlets to take your project. You can put it online, and people, if you build a good social following, you can do it. But Stephen can talk about how the industry's changed.
Yes, let's.
Sure. Did you have a question?
No, I said yes, please, let's.
Okay, let's.
Let us.
Well, Sarah's right. My friends in television feel that this is sort of a golden age for them, because with the explosion in Amazon and Netflix and Hulu and Crackle and all the others, it's really opened up the door for so many filmmakers just like you guys. And it's an exciting time. When Sarah and I got into business, it really was a theater or nothing. Home video wasn't even invented when I started at Buena Vista. And so everything had to be a big production, but no longer is the case. So it's a really exciting time, and young filmmakers can find lots of entry points into the business. Again, distribution is the key to everything. Even if you are dedicated to be a filmmaker, you really have to understand the business of how the movie industry works, how films get distributed. And the more you know about that, the better equipped you're going to be about getting projects picked up and released and make lots of money. So, understanding distribution is, I think, key to the success of any filmmaker.
Yeah, and that's what's helpful for me, that when I made movies, even an $18,000 movie in Dallas, we were looking at, I was given the knowledge that distribution was key when I had worked for New Regency, because Arnaud Milchan had New Regency's foreign sales was big, and they kept telling me, I thought distribution was accounting. I didn't, I just saw somebody doing something on a computer, but that was the thing. If you have distribution, then you can get your message out there, and then you'll become more popular and you can get more money. I mean, if your movie was released even in France, it's better than it being released nowhere. So distribution, I had distribution on a movie called Process of Creative Deception. We were out shopping that right after we had finished filming. We had a teaser. I did this movie we had Yesterday Was a Lie. We were shopping it before we were even shooting it, trying to see if somebody would at least distribute it. They weren't giving us money, but we had a letter of intent. That got us money from people. So that's a distribution.
A good entry point for your students to think about is that the world of digital distribution is just getting started. It's in its infancy. With Netflix and these other companies, there are companies that are going to dominate this industry that haven't been born yet.
Right.
So I think that digital distribution and understanding how it works and who the players are is going to be crucial to the success of anyone in the film industry going forward. I know a lot of, so say, old guard video and film distributors, and they're seeking out young people who know a lot more about the digital side of the world, because they don't. They come up through the traditional models of home video and theatrical releasing, but there's this is a YouTube world.
Yeah, I was going to say that about YouTube. I mean, you're hearing these YouTube stars that have built these huge followings and are getting these deals from the studios. Awesomeness TV sold for millions of dollars to somebody big like Sony or DreamWorks, something like that. And so you're able to build a following in advance with things like YouTube. And when YouTube went HD, it was really helpful. So that's a form of distribution, knowing what different points there are, be it online distribution and building a following through social media, through and getting the attention of a distributor. And I know it is like winning the lottery, but it is possible. And then everything is now going out of this digital revolution. Distribution, television, film. I mean, Apple TV just came out a couple days ago, and the new TV OS is every channel is an app, kind of like we have on our iPhone and iPad. And I saw that coming years ago. I mean, I had a TV set that was smarter than most, and I was just thinking, when we can just touch on it and pull that app up and look for Breaking Bad. And be able to find it everywhere that's showing and decide that's what's going to change. So what's really I think is interesting also is that the movies are getting bigger, like with IMAX, and they're also getting smaller. People are releasing movies on iPads and iPhones. So I think television, internet, and film they're all merging now, and we're seeing that with movie stars making TV shows like. That one was with Woody Harrelson, the True Detective. They want to make TV. And this was theatrical quality storytelling.
I have a whole slew of questions.
Okay.
I'm gonna list off a couple of them, and then hope that you can keep track of them. One is, because I'll never keep track of them if I have to ask him, but one is, Stephen, can you speak to what the distribution process is for people and how they might get the attention, as Sarah said, of a distributor. And then I'll do the last one is, if you're going to make content for different media today, it really is no different than it used to be. In other words, you made things for 70-foot screens or 40-foot screens, then you made stuff, you shot differently for TV because the box size was different. So it would be true, too, if you're going to make something on your phone, you don't go out and make Braveheart and have lots of big battle scenes for your iPhone video. I would imagine you'd want more of the close-ups like you would do in television. You'd want more of the framing. So three questions. What's the distribution process like today that they should begin to understand? Where should they put their attention as filmmakers? They should be reading the trades and be on top of things and know what's going on, and who's in power and who's stepping down and all the stuff you need to know in business. And then how do you get the attention of a distributor and then shooting for the various media?
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I work a lot with independent distributors. And they have always said to me, well, we need this kind of film. We don't have enough family films. We don't have, this is where the holes in the market are. If you sit down with a distributor, they will tell you what the market is asking for, because they're selling to the whole global film community. And I mean, they want their movies to sell in Japan and in France and in Russia and in Bangladesh. So, one thing about America is that this is one medium that we have down. We are still the world's greatest filmmakers. And that was self-evident when I was living in Hong Kong, Russia, wherever I work, there's a tremendous respect for American filmmaking. And the answer is, you really need to talk to distributors one-on-one. They'll tell you what is needed, what the market is hungry for. Because if they're selling, boy and the dog pictures, they need another boy in the dog picture or a girl in the dog picture. The fact is that, this is an industry where it's not build it and they will come. It's find out where they are and then build it and bring it to them.
Yeah.
So I think really, Rex, the key here for any of your budding filmmakers is to talk to distributors about what they're on their upcoming 2016-17 release schedules, what they need, what they're looking for, where they see, a trip to American film market was very valuable. And, basically you need to talk to the domestic and foreign film distributors because they will tell you what's selling. And it's our job to make it.
We're right at the, I'm sorry, sir, we're right at the cusp of AFM.
Yeah, we are. It
starts 2 days from now.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like me as an indie filmmaker, I'm thinking, well, how do I talk to distributors? They don't know me. So other ways to do that is go and attend, if a bunch of distributors are on a panel, to go to that panel. Or watch, now you can watch these panels at AFM. Some of them are being broadcast on different, I think Hollywood Reporter, Variety has some panels. And even if it costs you $10 to listen to that panel, they're going to tell you, distributors are going to say, we're looking for this, we're looking for that. We don't want any more horror movies. We want more of these. So if you can't talk to them in person because you live in, Washington State, where I'm from, you need to be able to tap into that and hear what they're saying, reading the trades, watching these panels on TV or on your computer, or just at least reading about it. And that is, I think, when you're not here in LA, because it is hard to get into distributors. Stephen comes from more of a studio system. I come from independent from the past 16 years. But so you just have to read and see what they're looking for if you can't actually talk to them.
No, it's something for all of you to think about. One thing Sarah and I, after 30 plus years in the business, have found is that there's nothing sells better than a known brand. Mm-hmm. A well-known book, even an actor is a brand. Mm-hmm. We're working with an iconic comedy team, and we just got greenlit for 3 movies based on their antics. Brands are so important. If you get nothing more out of this call, please remember that we have found that, I can tell you personally, when I left the Walt Disney Company and struck out on my own as an intellectual property, marketeer, it was like going into the desert. The Disney was an ocean of brands, solid brands that they had built up over 60 years before I got there. And, branding is really critical in Hollywood today. It's critical on YouTube. It's critical anywhere you go. So if you can lay into something as a famous brand, a famous children's book, or something that really has already built-in awareness, you are heads and shoulders above anyone else. So, that's a good place to start.
The practicality, though, for being an indie filmmaker of getting to a brand is it's difficult, but you may have a cousin that wrote Little House on the Prairie or something. So you have to, it's about knowing people too, and maybe you can get the option, you have a famous cousin, or your neighbor's kid wrote something.
Oh yeah, I forgot. It took us 30 years to get here so people would bring us
brand
name entertainment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot that part.
Right, and for just entering, it's harder. So what can you do? Who do you know? Because this business is so much about who you know and then what you know, and then also persevering. We talked to Rex a couple days ago. Those are kind of the core messages here. But if there's a way that you can tap into that will get you there a bit quicker. So, I mean, once you start making movies, if you can latch on to a brand or you can get a star to appear in your movie for a day, that would even help, and save up all your money just to get that person for a day. And on to the other question that Rex was saying about, what do you shoot on? I've always thought that the story dictates the medium. I worked on the movie Yesterday Was a Lie, and we knew we had to shoot it in black and white. Even though black and white movies weren't selling, we knew that. We were going to shoot it on black and white film, but what we did instead is we shot it with the Sony HD cam, and we converted it to black and white, but we wanted to have the scope. But yes, if you're doing a romantic comedy, you can shoot it up close and personal. Those play well on iPhones, they play well on iPads. But if you want to shoot a big movie like The River Runs Through It, you are going to have to go for scope and have to go for a bigger picture. Now, it's not impossible to actually get those cameras. I worked with Sony's been kind of a sponsor with cameras with me over the past 15 years, and they have a Sony F3 camera. It's an $18,000 camera body. It can be rented inexpensively, and you can snap on film lenses. So with that, you could shoot a big movie with a camera that's not that expensive. When the cameras used to be $500,000, now these cameras are shooting in 4K. It's the size of a Sony Handycam, and you're just going to be renting the nice lenses. So, like what we talked about earlier, now that the technology is coming down, it's going to be in the hands of filmmakers. You can shoot something big, but if you can't get that camera, and you just want to shoot it with your iPhone, then shoot a comedy. Well, I'm being facetious in that, but people do shoot. They shot a movie on an iPhone.
I know.
Well,
That's not the way to go.
Yeah, my point being is that if you want to show something, you don't have any money.
I work at Disney.
Yeah, but Steven, if you
We don't do things on iPhones.
Right, but they don't work at Disney, and they don't have that access.
They might.
Yeah, exactly. Then they
If
can.
you want to work at Disney later on,
Yeah.
believe me.
Yeah. But I'm just trying to say, for people wanting to tell their stories, and how do you get it out there as opposed to just a one-page pitch or a screenplay, shoot 3 minutes of it on something with some type of device to show.
Well, I think you both make excellent points in all of this, and in a moment I'm going to open it up for questions. But I have a question and a comment. But one is, I mean, in the old days, they understood the platform that they were shooting for, whether it was theater or television. So that makes sense. Obviously, you go for whatever the story best serves the story, and you want to make a good movie. And I would think most filmmakers to this day, unless otherwise disposed or predisposed, would still want their film in a theater.
Yes,
I could be wrong, but I want to sum up the points that I heard you make recently, just in the last few moments, that I think are important. One is, you need to know what's current, and you need to know what's hot, and it may be hot today, not hot necessarily tomorrow, but you need to be on top of where the market is and what the distribution streams are offering, or channels are seeking, rather, so that you can be business savvy. And another way to do that is to stay on top of the business, to stay in tune and in touch with the trades, know who's doing what, who's doing it where, why they're doing it, and also, where I am at most remiss, be tech savvy, because the industry technology is changing, and that opens up doors for you to be able to do things at lower costs or easier than you would have been able to do before. So, the student or the young filmmaker or emerging filmmaker, no matter what age they are, really needs to focus on not only on being a good storyteller and their craft, but they need to focus on the business, because they can make the best movie ever, and it can sit, on the top of their dresser, in their bedroom, and never get to market. So getting it to market. So with that in mind, how do they make those introductions? What should they do? What kind of rapport moves can they do? If Steven, I've got a movie, or I'm interested, and I somehow manage, or go to AFM. Obviously, every year, people should just go to AFM, because that is a huge opportunity. to meet and intersect with people. But let's say I meet you at AFM and I say, I'm a filmmaker, and you're going to say, well, big deal. Everybody here's the filmmaker. How do I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but how do we make contact? What would you hope that a filmmaker, if they were going to approach you, would do or say to get your attention and your interest?
Well, this is a business that runs on money, and so having some access to capital, having access to a camera is not going to get you very far. But you need to have, I've been thinking about this a lot. This is a collaborative industry, and you really need to have a team. No, none of us succeed by ourselves, and you don't get to me by coming out of film school. You just can't, or to my colleagues, who are in the top tier of the film industry. You really need to, build a resume, and then you're interesting to me. Question is, what can you do for me? It's not what I can do for you. So you have to come to me with something that I need, and is it your film? Is it a distribution outlet? Is it a relationship at Hulu? You got to come with something. You have to have some gravitas, something that will make you valuable to everyone in the industry. I was going to make one comment before I forget it, is that, the film, if you want to make films, I would make a beeline for Georgia, New Mexico, upstate New York, wherever there's film incentives, because the film industry gravitates to incentives. I cannot tell you how many meetings, even with major studios, are hinged on what state are we going to shoot in that gives us the best incentive. It doesn't matter what movie it is. I have a movie that was true story from Alaska. We're looking at shooting it on Lake Ontario in upstate New York because we can get a 30% film incentive. This is, so we're going to make a New York into Alaska, So, this kind of thing is that for your filmmakers, I wanted to make a note. Film incentives is a huge part of the business, and all that information is available. What states have the best incentives, and you basically contact the film commissions there. And really, if you want to make a filmmaker, I would go to Albuquerque, go to Atlanta, and go to Buffalo. Those places where those people are booming. The film industries are booming because of the state incentives.
I think they have 31 TV shows now shooting in Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely. There's jobs there. So the answer is that you need to come into something that I can't get from anyone else. And that's, when people approach me that really get my attention, they've optioned a screenplay that's brilliant. Something that, I always believe, rightly or wrongly, that quality wins out in the end, always. A great screenplay will always get made. It may take a while, but it will get made. I see a lot of good projects. They're not great. They're good. Good doesn't get it. Good doesn't get made. Great gets made. So, you need to ally yourself with greatness somewhere along the line. Great cinematographer, a great director, a great writer. Maybe that's you. But, really, I do think greatness is what wins out in the end.
I love it. I love the answer, and I love the fact that you said you got to provide value for me, because that truly is what it is all about. A lot of people come asking for things, and I also like the fact that you said, a lot of people go, I'm shooting a movie, and we're shooting it on the red, as if that's the sale point, and it just does nothing for most people. So excellent points. Now, Sarah, you're a producer to director. Same question I would ask for you, and then all you guys have questions. But I always argue that any good director absolutely needs a good producer.
Oh yeah, you do. You need to be able to manage your resources and your money. Even if it's a $50,000 budget or $50 million budget, you need to be able to make sure you're putting the money where it needs to go. And
movie business, yeah.
Did I say?
yeah, it is part of the deal. No, and so as a producer, I've taken a little bit of money and made it go far. And then I've worked on bigger projects and still made it look bigger. You know, made $2.3 million Hallmark movies. They look like they're $5 to $6 million. We've had actors show up. We had Marion Ross, who's on Happy Days, and she goes, "Well, if I would have known this was a bigger budget, I would have asked for more money." And like, it's not a big budget, but we put our money into taking care of the cast and crew. They had really good food. We fed them. And we had nice locations, and we just spent all this time prepping to make sure that it was a good experience, and it made it. And people have a good experience, they're going to make a better movie. And we made sure that people were paid fairly, and they weren't making a lot of money, but they were making a good amount of money, and we just treated them well, and we're loyal because they're loyal to us. We're loyal to them, and bringing them back on the movie I made a few months later. We brought back that same crew. And so I think as a good producer, it's about just being a good person to them and making a good experience. I mean, that's all I can say. It's about loyalty and a good experience.
I want to make one comment. You know, there's sometimes this idea in the industry you have to work with a bunch of, assholes to get into this business. You don't. There's so many wonderful people in the film industry, like this one right here. There really are fabulous people to work with, and it should be fun and enjoyable experience. You don't have to work with people who are jerks. It's really not, it shortens your life, not worth it.
And don't be a jerk. Don't be a jerk, because, unless you're somebody,
treat people with respect.
Incredibly famous, and you can get away with it. Otherwise, people are not going to want to work with you. They're not going to come and help you out. They're not going to work that 11th and 12th hour but not charge you. Just be, it's a good energy. I call it karma filmmaking.
Yeah,
put it out there.
Very important. Sarah and Stephen, for that matter, when it comes now, today, in 2015 or almost 16, the industry has changed and costs have come down, and the industry's making big, tentpole superhero movies, independents produce it. How easy is it, and why is it important to get name talent in, or who do you look for, Stephen? On the video box or the artwork. Sarah, how easy is it to get these people to work a day or more for you, and how do you do it? What do you do? I mean, a lot of people will say, I tried, I approached the agents shut me down. They don't want to see my script. They don't want it. They're not interested. How do you get access to the talent?
Well, I've written a lot of articles about that, and if anyone wants to visit www.bismarck.net and look what I call my weekly blogs.
Oh, awesome.
Which seem to come out monthly or quarterly. But I've written a lot about, I call it star trading cards and things like that. It's funny when you're at the Four Seasons Hotel with the director and producers, and you're trying to decide cast, and a lot has to do with their foreign box office numbers, and really who's pulling when, and the chemistry between actors is important. I mean, it's amazing to see the alchemy that goes into casting. It's really quite remarkable. But it's these days it's a start with one star, and then everyone else can often be built around. But you need to have a hook, something that gets them in. You either give that star a producer credit, or maybe a lot of actors want to direct, so they end up being your director-actor. There's all kinds of tricks to entice a name actor into a project. So you got to use those little hooks.
Yeah, you're better off having one person that's even vaguely familiar in your project, and maybe you have them for 3 days, and you can shoot around them and get as much as that. They're not going to be your lead, but you might be able to make them.
It's not Eric Roberts.
He's very nice. But then they have at least some value for when they're looking at selling it, when distributors are looking at selling it, foreign numbers, they can go, this person made before 10,000 per territory, so that then this makes your project worth more money. So even if you could have, and I've done that, went out with really good scripts, and was able to contact named people through their publicist and not going through their agents. So you have this heartwarming story that's about, you know, somebody that's, you know, saved the entire town from a flood, and you go to their publicist, and if you can convince their publicist, sometimes their publicist, like, they'll tell them, you need to do this. You need to be the sheriff for 3 days. This is a beautiful story. And you may get through to them, but the agents and managers they want to know, you know, they make a percentage of the money that the star is billing, but a publicist is on a monthly retainer. And so it's, you know, find out who their publicist, who represents them, and then go see if you can attract it through a publicist. I think that's one side door that a lot of people don't know about. Maybe you know that this one actor is really a huge advocate for breast cancer, so you go through their publicist.
Well, you know, also the directors are often keys to cast too, and that you get an experienced director. They, you know, the directors keep their actor friends close, and often you can get much higher end cast for lower money, because you have the right director who will spend some of their own personal capital to get their friends to come and work on their movie.
Yeah, it's in this kind of repertory theater that they want to all come back to work again. I worked with a director named John Putch, and John Putch gets huge people to make these $60,000 movies because, you know, was the son of Jane Stapleton, but because everybody wants to work with Putch. And so they flock to Pennsylvania to make. He just did Route 30 trilogy, and he made all these movies for under $100,000 each. And you've got, I mean, you should look at his cast he has on there. People that are in Desperate Housewives and all these names, because they want to work with Putch, and they're all working for the $100 a day, and they're all carrying equipment. And so what he's saying about we're getting a good director is right on. That they do have friends that always want to work with them. And I have people that want to work with me, and so I bring them on to little movies I've made and the bigger ones because I treat them well, and we have fun. We're professional, but we have fun. So it is.
So the same question applied to getting a producer or a director on your project. And then lastly, and then I will truly open it up, is without naming any names, are there anybody who you do not want to cast in your movie or have direct your movie? Are those people that distributors have, you know, that they shy away from, and that it would not benefit you?
I wouldn't say any names outright, but distributors do have. Yeah, there are some that they do not want to because their numbers have not proven well, and these people make lots of these little movies because they have gone on this past street cred that they had, and their movies are not pulling good numbers, and they're taking a big chunk of the budget and making their 3 days, making $100 grand of a $200,000 movie, and they're not doing the numbers. But to the indie filmmaker, they're like, oh, I got so and so.
Right.
So you just have to check with distributors; they'll tell you.
But that's again. I mean, that's where the relationship with the distributor comes in, and with knowing the business and understanding who's on top and who's not, and who's the kiss of wonder for your movie, perhaps, and who's the kiss of death.
Yeah.
All right.
It's
So
true.
getting a director and a producer attached in similar, go to their publicist as well. I mean, what?
You could. I mean, directors and publicists typically don't have. I mean, directors and producers don't have publicists at that level, but you might just call their production company, and then it's been, you have a really good story. It's a really good screenplay. And I'm going to go on a little side thing here for about 2 minutes. When you have a really good script, be sure you register with the Writers Guild, because you have to protect your intellectual property is your property. It's like your house, and you have to own it in order to sell it. So you need to make sure, we call it chain of title, that you own this, or you have the option on some great book, that it's solid, because you can't sell it if it isn't. Even if you're making a small $10,000 independent film, make sure everything's registered and you have the rights to do it.
Yeah, we often inherit messes, other people's messes, where they didn't do a good job of registering, or they didn't register their screenplay, or they have murky option agreements out there. You need clarity in this business, and so you need clean chain of title on every project, and it really slows down the process.
Yeah,
if you don't have that.
Yeah, and so you can get those standard. I use standard WGA option purchase agreements, and I use them for my non-WGA writers. And I use everything the same, because WGA is protecting the producer and the writer and the property, and it's a non-WGA agreement, but I abide by all the same rules that WGA would, and they're out there on the internet. I would use that first. So always paper it up, whatever project you do, before you even try to raise money or even attach it, an actor or star. Make sure that you have the rights to make this story, or you're going to have a bad reputation.
So I lied. I said I was going to open it up, but let's talk E&O for a second because of where we are with this.
You mean errors and omissions when you're shooting?
Yeah, and what the distributor wants in terms of deliverables and...
They'll tell you. Each one's, they're now changing that. It's more, if I used to have a typical Exhibit A when I would deliver, and they would want all these separate things, but now that the actual elements and assets have changed, because we don't have, film negative and stuff, you just want to have, make sure you have all your paperwork done, you have all your option, not only your option purchase agreement, but you want to make sure that every actor has an agreement, every producer, every director, everything there. You have location releases. And so part of that is your deliverables, and then based upon that, you can get an E&O policy. And it'll cost more, or sometimes you can't get them if you don't have the right rights. So it's all about making sure that you have everything, you're packaged together, and then your physical elements are all standard. Is it a 4K master, an HD master? You have your standard, your audio is a certain way, and you have to have, title lists and all that. And it's just it's a checklist, and it's pretty standard in the business. I keep them on my computer, and they're constantly changing now because of the new digital elements that are being delivered.
Fantastic. Now I open it up. Question?
I got one.
Yes.
Name? Hi, my name's Jake. I guess my question is, besides going to a distributor directly, what's the best way to get your film noticed? Is a film festival still a good way to go about, or is it more online now, or what's the best way to go about getting noticed by a distributor?
I know, if you can get accepted by film festivals, absolutely. I mean, all of the major distributors I know attend most of the film festivals. They send people there specifically to find new upcoming filmmakers. So the film festivals, hopefully in your lifetime and mine, will still be a major connecting point. Go there and hobnob. I still have friends that I met at film festivals and shows 20 years ago. So it's who you meet there at sometimes a cocktail party that make those relationships. You need to be on the scene. You don't just send your movie to a film festival. You work the film festival. This is a relationship-driven business, and you're there to meet people. They're filmmakers, directors, writers, distributors of every size and shape. So really, I think that if you can get into film festival, if your project's that good, great. You don't want to put your film up on YouTube or something and have it stolen.
Well, then you've released it, basically.
Then you released it, yeah.
And there's no value to it.
Yeah, you need to control your film, make sure that it never gets, proliferated without your say.
Yeah, so, and I've done film festivals, and when I did one in 2000, did Slam Dance, and we had a short film in Slam Dance, and we invited, I had real good connections with distributors, and I invited people from Fine Line and all these different distributors that come to screen our movie, and 90% couldn't. But it's like they can't do it, so they met me over at the Starbucks, or I met them at a party because I had was able to connect with them. Oh, I had a movie at Slamdance, and that was PR for me. I knew they probably wouldn't show up. Actually, one woman did show up from Vine Line to it, but she knew I was there. I had meetings because she had a full slate of what she needed to watch, and then she wasn't able to attend the screening, and I said I got her a screener copy after the festival. So it's part of the marketing and PR if you're in a festival, and it's great to be in a top 25 festival. Those are hard to get into, and if you can get into one, great. But that's not you can look at top 50 festival, and now I think it's out of the box. You can register online and get all of go to film festivals all over the world, and even if you can win a smaller festival that's more niche. Like the movie Yesterday It Was a Lie, we won film festivals that you vaguely had heard of, and then we're an award-winning film, and we got really well-known journalists to watch the movie. Ain't It Cool News gave us a great review, and at the time that was a big thing. And so yes, getting your film, if it's a good film, getting it reviewed by a journalist, getting it in a film festival. And I think I also came out to LA, and I rented a screening room, and I invited distributors on a movie that we did. And we got about 3 different distributors, and that's because I knew these distributors and was calling in favors from my New Regency Vestron days from before, and a lot of these people have film distribution. It's constantly evolving. You might be able to do on Vimeo, let them watch your movie on a password-protected site, Vimeo, and get to them that way. Have a really nice teaser of it, and you might be able to get through them. Can they maybe watch 5 minutes of your movie online, and it's all protected? That might be a way also to do that.
Now I want to make a comment that it's not about the 100-minute film anymore, or 120-minute film. It's mostly, I want you to all think about everything's about serial content these days in one form or another. Your question about releasing, you never release an entire film, on YouTube or anything, because again, then it's not yours anymore, and you've brought your chance of making money down to 0. But what you do is segment it, and a lot of my clients are looking for serialized content. So you bring it, you show an episode of something or a piece that whets the appetite, but you don't give them the full 7-course meal.
Yeah, and that brings to a lot of, right now, a lot of people are looking at limited series, and I've converted several of my screenplays into a short 6-episode limited series, and they're very hungry for that right now. A lot of these Amazons and these, because then they can bring you back. And the nice thing about limited series, you can really do some character exploration. You can really you think about Fargo and how deep you go into Fargo.
Verizon is just greenlit 9 limited series.
Yeah, Verizon.
9.
It's excellent, but just to be clear, we're not talking about taking your 100-minute movie and just chopping it into pieces. We're talking about planning
from the beginning to be a serial.
But that's not to say that you can't do that.
Right.
You can cut that up into and make it a true. If you've already shot the movie, you might have to re-edit it and make it into that.
You could
it's
work
better to have that option. I've retooled 3 of my major projects into limited series right now because that's what they're looking for.
What's so amazing to me is that when you think of the early film business and how it started with these little clips, little snippets of things, and then finally a little bit of like short film, and then cliffhangers and serialized movies drove a huge portion of the industry, and we're back at that. We're back to cliffhangers essentially, and little tiny bits and pieces that show up on the internet. I mean, it just is amazing, this kind of full circle ride that we've. So awesome.
Well,
golden age of television.
Yeah.
You were going to say
well, the attention span of the public has gotten shorter and shorter, and cuts are much quicker than they were. No one's into doing soliloquies on film anymore, so you're really into the shortcut film industry, and so quick time movies, shorts, you know, they dominate a lot part of the film industry.
I'm hoping that the pendulum swings back to the other side and we can have long,
I know, we all
drawn
do.
out.
We're analog, Rex. What can we do?
We could go back and do Lawrence of Arabia and
Yeah.
have long, lingering.
Good luck with that.
Well, Star Wars may do that. They're big.
But I mean, seriously, in the sense that we have really conditioned our population by the media to have a shorter attention span. We could begin to, you know, it may take a lot of work, but to delicately condition them back the other way so that they have lengthier.
And it.
Yeah, just stretch it out a bit. Other questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Thunder. Going off of that, you know, knowing that the,
Can you speak up,
I
please?
can't hear you.
sorry, no, going off of what you just said, that, you know, the attention span has shrunk.
Project.
How do you get around that?
Well, you make what, you know, every story is,
Like, do you buy
you know, a combination of a certain number of scenes, right? And elements that make the story. You know, act 1, act 2, act 3. You know, you basically tell your story in acts. You basically, you know, a lot of times at the beginning, the middle, and end. We're working with a famous comedy, and you know, they made 180 shorts, and they became hugely successful and famous. So, you know, really, you can tell, it's amazing. I mean, in a 60-second commercial, you can tell an entire story. So, it isn't about the brevity, it's about the quality of the storytelling.
Yeah, and I was thinking, Sasha, if you have a really good editor now, because we call it the CPM, the cuts per minute, you can go in and intercut your stories, even though you had a long scene, intercut it and jump back and forth and fall under the formula of jumping from this to that and interweave those stories and get the people's attention span, because you're jumping back and forth between two stories. There are filmmakers that do that really well. Quentin Tarantino, I mean, he's just bam, bam, bam. He's back and forth. You're going very, very quickly. And so you need the big thing here is to study what is hot right now. Go to watch a lot of movies, watch a lot of TV, see how they're cutting them, see what they're doing and why they're so popular.
Excellent. Who else? What else? Yes, sir.
My name is Chase. I have a question for Sarah. I was just wondering what kind of work you did as a consultant for New Regency and like how you were involved with the productions that they released.
I couldn't hear everything.
I was curious what you did as a consultant for New Regency and what kind of work you did, how you were involved in production.
What I did was I was working. My mentor, Steve Ruther, wanted me to learn about the studio system, and he paid me really well. I would go into, I went into the development department, and they were just switching over to computers. So I set up a system for developing films, and then we would take scripts in, have them read, and then we were able to track it. I did a tracking system there in development. And then I wrote it, I think, in a program called RBase, and you know, now they do it all digital. In the legal department, I took all their contracts and created a mail merge so that you could instantly fill in the writer's name and the thing, and it would just trickle down into the contract, and you didn't have to type it from scratch. And then in post-production, when I was working on that, I just set up the computer that had all the shots in it, and then got to sit next to them and watch, you know, them cut Power of One in case there were any computer programs. I worked, they were having trouble in the accounting department, and I figured out that it was this, I have a background in accounting, I figured out it was some coding problem in their accounting software. So I went in and was a troubleshooter a lot on things with technology. My big thing that was the most beneficial for me was I had worked on a film called 3000 that Vestron Pictures had, and then it went to New Regency with Steve Ruther and became the movie Pretty Woman. And so I got to work had been written like 4 or 5 times rewrites, and I worked on the 5th rewrite that was actually filming. So we were rewriting scenes, and the reason why is I had a computer, and I was a program before the screenplay system. It's called Scripter, and I would take all of the scenes, type them in the computer, integrate it into there. So every day I was sitting with the writer, writing these scenes that they were redoing because they needed to. It was Disneyized. The screenplay was totally changed. And then in the morning, we would meet with Gary Marshall, with Steve Ruther, Richard Gere, and Bob Garland, and I got to sit there and take notes. And that was a huge learning system. I learned to not talk much, and if they asked my opinion, I would say, I think whatever you guys think is the best. Didn't want my opinion, and that was an incredible experience for me. And then I went in and just did more. My consulting started evolving in full systems, in integrating it was mostly computer work I did with them, but as I said, I was hands-on in every department. So digital revolution there.
Awesome. Stephen, I want to ask you a question, Stephen, and while you guys think of another question. Kevin Smith said, everybody thinks I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm not. I made one independent film, and that was Clerks. And since then, I've been a studio director. I'm not the independent guy anymore. So, is that the way today for people to get into the studio system, or is there another path? If there's somebody here said, you know what, I don't really want to be an independent filmmaker. I just soon go get into the studios. How is there an avenue for them to pursue?
Yes, of course. I mean, the studios are looking for great talent all the time. I mean, and they are really good at selling movies. And I mean, obviously, the amount of money that the studios put behind their projects is much greater. You can't live on bread and water. It's nice to eat steak every once in a while. And, the films that the studios release are, steak and potato movies. And, really, I do believe, I had the pleasure of, joining the Walt Disney Company in 13th floor. So I started at the top and been working my way down. So I really liked it when they used to meet me at the airport with a little sign and the driver. That was great. So working with the studios has its perks, believe me. And you really want to work your way into relationships with the studios. The nice thing about the business is you can do one film for Sony, and then next film you do with MGM. Then you do another project for Paramount, and then you work your way into Disney. So, really, once you've worked with the studios and you start having those relationships hopefully you'll keep for life. Because a lot of your colleagues are also going to end up over at the other studios. So you stay really close to your friends. Believe me, because, the people that I've met over 30 years, they've changed jobs, but now they're the head of development over at Warner Brothers. So you really need to, once you get inside the studio systems and you start building friendships, those contacts are contacts you'll have for life. And it's like going to Harvard. And it isn't going to Harvard, the education that you got. It's the people you met at Harvard, when you were there. And if you use that well, then it's a key to success in everything else you do.
And then that's what I did. When I came back from Texas, I reconnected with people I had worked at Warner Brothers and all these different places and told, what are they doing? Where are they now? And but I know it's hard to get in, when you're thinking about somebody, I'm from Washington State. Who would have thought I would have got in here? But I, met the right people at the right time. I worked hard, I had a good work ethic. I was honest, I was authentic, and I just kept at it. I didn't give up on it. And I think that, and if it isn't 20th Century Fox, maybe it's Fox Searchlight. They're a lot smaller. I had a producer's desk at Fox Searchlight because I knew somebody there when I came back from Texas. And I, got to sit in a corner and I got to make use FedEx for free and make copies of my screenplays because I knew somebody that was in at Fox Searchlight. And then I was able, because so these smaller ones, you got your Paramount Vantage, you've got these smaller little areas, and maybe that's what you go for, is getting with one of the smaller, more boutique part of the studio and getting in the door.
Now, if you want to be if you want to kind of get into the distribution business, you know, it's a good idea. I mean, you can, young people can start in as, say, in foreign distribution, working for an independent. And then after they, you know, build their contacts and get to understand the business better, then they move up to a bigger independent, and then they end up finding themselves at Fox. You know, that happens a lot.
If that's what you want.
Where the door to the top, you know, you enter, you know, the side door in a small independent distributor in New York. You know, you find yourself in London for a few years, then before you know it, you're in Burbank. So, you know, I mean, really, these things happen. That's the way 80% of my friends got into business. They went to film school, they worked for an independent, then they started working at a studio.
And it is business, and you just said that, you know, they don't just, you know, it's called show business because there's as much show as there is business. And I worked for 15 years. No one ever saw anything creative I had ever done. They didn't want to see it, but I worked in it and I did all the stuff. I set up what they needed. I was a really hard worker, smart worker. And then later when I was ready to show what I had creative, they respected me in one area, so I was able to, look at the script I have optioned.
You know, well, I'm sorry. I was just going to say I love what you both said, and the thing that I love is if I were your age, if I were back in film school, one of the things that I would very much consider would be once I got out of school, I would go work for a distributor as best I could, because I either then end up with a career in distribution, which is a good thing to have, and travel the world and everything else, and you know, as I work my way up. But I also learn all of what you know that you need to know to be a producer.
Yep.
So that then I could after working in distribution, I could be doing what you're doing, trying to produce or whatever at the same time, or I could then go to work for a production company or create my own production company with the knowledge of how I sell my product. Boy, if I were 22,
yeah, and it's about what Steve and I we write together, and we talk about the art and science of storytelling and story selling.
Yep.
Because it's both. It's equal. And I know I've talked on your radio show, Rex, about the business part of it. It is business. So it's great that you're teaching this class, because I saw that lacked in so many film schools. They weren't teaching anybody about the business. People know how to make a movie, but they don't know how to sell it, how to get it attention. And it's really important. That's what you need to know how to show business.
I appreciate you saying that. And also, I will say for everybody listening out there, it doesn't have to be that I would be 20. I could do it at 30, 40, 50, or 60. There's never a time that you can't start something.
True.
If you've got the passion and the persistence to carry it on.
That's
Age
true.
should never, ever stop anybody, even if you work inside an age discriminatory or gender discriminatory business or race discriminatory business, you can still prevail. So that's my opinion. Other questions? We have literally, just so you know, we've got about 10 minutes left, and this has been stellar. I've gotten great value from this. I truly appreciate this.
Us too. It's been great.
Thank you. Other questions?
Come on up.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Damien. I don't know what working for a distributor means. I really don't.
You don't know what working for a distributor means?
Yeah, like being a distributor.
Okay, well, a distributor is a company, and they're basically into sales, and then and actually taking the video, whatever it is, and getting it to whoever they sold it to. They're a conduit. So we take the studios some of them are distributors, and sometimes they use distributors, and they actually they sell it to movie theaters, or they sell it to ABC and digital platforms, or they put it in theaters, And so think of them as, you know, when you're
Think of
distributing
them as
food.
salesmen. Okay, I was a distributor. I mean, I was in film sales. Okay, and you're out there hawking films. It's your job. You meet with theater chains. You meet with these days the digital outlets, the Netflixes, the Hulus. You pitch films. That's what you do. You may have, you know, a distributor will have anywhere from 20 to 200 movies that they have under contract, and they're out at all the festivals. They go to all the foreign film festivals. You find yourself in Berlin. You find yourself in Venice. You find yourself in Hong Kong. You know, you travel the world basically, meeting with all the other buyers from every country, selling those films, because these days up to 80% of a film's revenue can come from offshore sales.
It's think of it as merchandise, and you're thinking of, you know,
Movies a commodity.
yeah, you think of a grocery store, and then there's the distributors that bringing all the foods in and then selling it to the stores and putting it out there. They have to sell it and everything.
Yeah, really,
It's business.
it isn't about filmmaking.
No.
This business is not about filmmaking. It's about film selling.
Yeah, consumption.
Well, just to think of all the relationships you would develop and all the connections you would cultivate from the people who buy film, so that when you turn around and then produce film, you have all these people you know. I mean, smart way to...
Film is a commodity. How many of these used to be DVDs or downloads or views? And that's what this business is about. And don't you want more eyeballs to see your movie? Because then it brings up your next movies, you're going to get a bigger budget and attract bigger people. So it's if you can learn how movies are consumed by reading the trades and reading people are so savvy now. You can read about the film business in, you know, LA Times and in, you know, the Seattle Post Intelligencer or Seattle Times, I don't know what it is now.
This is a global business.
Yes.
Remember, you know, this is not about, you know, Michigan or California or New York. It's about Italy and Australia,
South America,
and South Korea. You know, I have cultivated relationships around the world. And I made that my business, and I rely on those relationships. Because of those relationships, I get business from every corner of the globe. You know, and a movie that you might pick up in Japan, you know, could sell very, very well in the United States. Who knows? But this is, again, you need to think globally. This is not a domestic business.
Yeah, not anymore.
Awesome.
For us.
Anyone else?
Can I just branch off that? Who's paying the distributor, like Searchlight or Fox Searchlight and Paramount stuff? They like, and is it
Can you hear his question?
Barely.
I'm just trying to
Not really.
Okay, well, you recommending that when I graduate that I should try being a distributor. How much money is a distributor making, and what is happening if those, like, assuming that the flights are paid for to travel around and distribute it, what happens if they're not succeeding in distributing the film? You still get paid?
Oh, I get it.
Well, they're paid, you know, I mean, the distributors don't just sell one film. Like I said, they're selling 100 films.
They're salespeople.
So they're salespeople, and they have a catalog, basically, they're selling out of. And, you know, so, you know, if that one film isn't going, they've got 20 others that they can pitch. And they do work on volume, honestly.
Yeah, want to buy a watch, you know?
You know? So you don't want my Western? You know?
I got a horror film.
You got a horror film. You don't like, you're not buying horror right now, huh?
No.
So here's a romantic comedy.
But
So the answer is that when you need to work your way up through the distributor. They hire, you know, good people who work hard, and just like every other industry.
I think you're not, when you get out of school, you're not a distributor. You would work as a sales agent for a distribution company.
Work for a sales agent.
And so you're representing their product as if you were a shoe salesman or a pharmaceutical rep or something. So in that regard, I think what he wants to know is it like 100% commission, or is there a salary behind it?
Oh, these people, most of them I know are on salaries. And if they sell, they might get a bonus. You know, like think about a real estate agent. You're selling real estate, little pieces of real estate. You know, these movies. You know, whether you're renting it to somebody or selling it outright. So yeah, you'd probably be on a salary, and it would depends on the distributor.
Now there are, just so people know, there are acquisition specialists and then there are sales agents.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
And an acquisition. Go ahead. You want to explain it?
Well, you did.
Okay.
There are people who are acquiring. The more senior people are in the acquisition side, where they're actually going to festivals and picking up product. That's not going to be a 22-year-old film student.
It's about relationships.
You're going to basically be going to the festivals and handing out flyers, getting people to come to screenings. It's a grunt job, to start, but you learn the business from the ground up, and you work your way into a position where you'll be acquiring. But most of the people I know that acquire films are 35 to 45. They've been in the business for 10 plus years. These are not people starting off. Unless your father's a multimillionaire and you have money to start your own distribution company. But no, because the selling films is what you're being paid to do. Just like you said, just like shoes.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if you know somebody like Guillermo del Toro, he might be able to refer you to a distributor he's worked for. Because I knew him back before he had his deals. And, he's got a huge, look what he's doing. He's doing huge stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have about 4 minutes. Is there any final question? Yes, sir.
This is kind of on a different track. Oh, my name's Richard, by the way. It's kind of on a different track, but it seems like, Sarah, you gained a lot from having a really good mentor. How could I gain a mentor of such renown that benefit me as much as it has you?
It is, I was at the right place at the right time. I moved to LA 4 days after I got my bachelor's degree. And I worked for, I had met up at Expo 86 when I graduated from college, a producer, and he was the producer of Fleetwood Mac. And so I came down and worked for his company, and I just started networking. I did 2 years of, postgraduate work, working in the sound business, got to work for Pink Floyd, and I just started meeting people. I mean, I kind of won the lottery when I got out of college, but I met Steve Ruther, and just through some friends, actually through the Fleetwood people, and just worked hard for him. Came in and was doing a day. I would do a day here and there when his secretary was sick, and just got my foot in the door. Maybe it's temping, and you get in, and you can get into temp. They have temping down here in LA with the studio system. You can get into Paramount, and they have all just be on call as a temp. And you can meet people, but you have to be in LA, to do that.
Or Georgia or Albuquerque.
Yeah, somewhere that has the industry. You're just sending someone a letter is not work. Now, if you're related to somebody famous, your neighbor is, ask them to put a call in to see if you can get on as we can't work for free anymore. We have to pay interns because the interns were so abused here in California. But getting a low-paid internship, at least you're there, and maybe you're running errands or something like that, and those jobs are out there. And then someone will go, "My gosh, you're so great, you're so loyal, and you're so real, and you're fun to be with," and you'll gain yourself a mentor. But it's about being authentic, about being yourself. It's about persevering. I mean, I worked 7 years before I did anything, and I just kept doing it, and I kept doing it, and I kept doing it.
Well, I got an MBA, and then I worked for years in advertising before I got it into film. So, you have to build your resume. You don't just walk in. You need to bring the skill set that they need.
Yeah, and I did bring a skill set. I brought digital technology. I knew that very, very early in when computers were just first starting and people weren't having them. I could use a computer. These people didn't know. I hooked up a computer to keyboards and impressed, Mick Fleet. It was like, oh my God, I was playing with the computer. So I had something. Maybe it's social media you're really good at, and you bring in there. You bringing in something that you're really good at this level, and you're getting a lateral into the business to doing it for them. And that's how a lot of people get in, and just being that right hand.
Awesome, excellent. You had your hand up?
Yeah, I can close it out real quick. Back to the distribution side.
This is the last question.
Yeah, just and it'll be pretty simple answer, I'm assuming. But like, so I saw, I witnessed Seed and Spark, which is an independent distributor, and they were talking to a lot of independent filmmakers who have been kind of like duped by distributors through like a contract that like they didn't make a lot of money off of because when it went overseas, they didn't get any profit from that. Are there any distributors that you know of that you would look out for? Like any advice to like who we wouldn't want to?
I don't know if you can name names. I would.
Well, no, you can look online. The American Film Market Association has a list, if you go to the AFM, of people not to work with. Because I had a movie with my friend Annabelle Schofield, and her movie was basically stolen, and then we tried to pull it, and they still have it out there, and they're selling it. We sued and everything. They're on the bad list at AFM. I think he said ITVFA or something.
IFTA, International Film Television Association. They're a membership organization. They tend to police their own, but you really need to ask a lot of questions, ask people in the industry before you commit to anyone. But make sure that don't put your eggs in one basket. Make sure that you have options. Like, you don't give everybody the entire world in perpetuity on your movie.
On every medium.
Yeah. And make sure that you hold back rights so that you can do the research.
Yeah, so AFMA. You can go to the American Film Market Association and look up people that are that have been in arbitration that are banned, and do not sign with them. I mean, I can tell you off camera who these people are, or you can go look it up. And then the other organization, and that's how they agree to abide by it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And this is where a good entertainment attorney comes in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Having all your assets protected. Yeah. I got to tell you guys, Sarah and Stephen, this has been a marvelous time. Thank you so much. I'm going to call you in a little while just to debrief.
Okay.
I'll call you when class is over and stuff. But thank you so much, students. What do you think of them? So these are a real good group of people. They'll be in Hollywood or Georgia or somewhere your paths may cross sometime soon, and they'll say, hey, I was in Rex's class.
Send me their names, Rex. Send me all their names, your class list, at least so I know who they are.
There you go. All right. Awesome. So thank you so much. Have a fabulous day. We'll talk in a little while.
Okay.
But you guys have been incredible, and this has been an incredible amount of time, and certainly great value for anyone who listens and watches.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye for now.